have Meghan Vallis joining us now from Equitable Life. So I will quickly I will introduce Meghan. Welcome, Meghan. Thank you so much for attending as well. I know that Meghan has also got a busy lineup of activities, as did Mark and Mario earlier, and we appreciate them taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're welcome, Meghan. So Meghan, you, by the way, pay attention, because she's got a sense of humor that if you're not paying attention, it might go right by you. But
yeah, you don't want to miss out on my jokes.
So Meghan has been in the benefits industry since 2006 and in her current position as Group Sales Vice President of Western Canada and MyFlex, and that's MyFlex nationally, right?
Correct.
Yeah. By the way, one of the most innovative tools, albeit it might not appear that way, but a fully insured flex benefit plan down to 3 people with a 2-year renewal cycle, not 2-year rate guarantee first time, but 2-year rate cycles for each cycle on a modified pool basis. Really a remarkable program. So Meghan leads the respective sales teams at Equitable for Western Canada General Group and for MyFlex across the country. She has a passion about helping advisors succeed to transform their clients' employee benefits experience to what Meghan calls braggable benefits. As a full-on benefits nerd, really?
Yep, big time.
Meghan loves to talk shop and connect with folks in the benefits industry. People rely on Meghan for a unique perspective on the industry, and she is a go-to resource for industry colleagues and clients. Meghan is also the voice behind the Group Advisor blog. So Meghan, thanks a million for being here, and it is all yours.
Great. Thank you so much, David. So I'll just dive right in. Thanks again for having me here. Excited to have a discussion, share information with the group. So this isn't a trends presentation, because I think what we're talking about really today is where we are with benefits and who really is in the plan and what they care about. So instead of trends, it's really, these topics are about a fundamental shift in focus in the workplace and a reflection of the workplace today and how employees are evolving. How we work, where we work, and what we care about has changed. I'm at my head office today in Waterloo, but often I work from home. I've got colleagues around me. We've got a lot of great space here at Equitable. And so even just how we're working, with interacting with each other has changed. So we'll see if the great crystal ball is working today. We'll turn it to see if we can determine, how things will continue to evolve over time. There's always an overarching theme of affordability when we're talking about what's going on in benefits, because with all the evolution, everything that's happening, it all comes back to cost. How much cost are employers willing to bear to get the benefits they want? What's an employer's risk tolerance? And for employees, how much cost are they willing to bear? So it's always important to, uncover why an employer wants a benefit program in place. What purpose do they want it to serve? Anyway, let's dive into what we have here. This is a little bit of a kind of reality check here, because there's this sort of question that we need to be asking around, is what we know about claiming patterns still true today? And are the assumptions we're making at renewal still working? At renewal time, carriers are making assumptions around, how many years of experience to use, how much weighting to put on the experience from prior years, maybe prior 1, prior 2, prior 3. So keep this question in mind as we get into the next piece here, because I think that some of these assumptions will be changing or should be changing. So we need to understand who is in the workforce, and based on that, what do the majority of folks in the workforce care about, and how are they interacting with their employer with the benefit program? So we have 4 age categories in the working population. The working population is aged 15 to 64. So we're going to focus on them. We've got our Gen Z friends up first. They're the youngest people in the workforce. And I bet a lot of you might have one of these fun folks at home. So for context, if you follow the traditional trajectory, high school, university, get a job, the real job, at the end of university, depending on how long you did for your post-secondary, you're probably getting a job at age 20, 22-ish. So Gen Zs are very much in the office, they're working, but in the same breath, they're in high school. These people are aged 12 to 27, right? So they're kind of half in the workforce, half still in school full time. So keep this age range in mind as you start to read more and more clickbait headlines about this group that are firing up. The focus is slowly shifting away from millennials into Gen Zs. There's a lot of studies on Gen Z, and they're kind of silly when, the study shouts out, like, half of Gen Z hasn't saved $100. Well, of course not. They're in high school. Like, they shouldn't have $100 saved, perhaps. They should be going to school and having fun. But this age group is growing in the workforce. And it's important to consider that as more and more of these folks are entering the workforce, that COVID has had an impact on this entire generation that hasn't impacted the other generations. They were stuck at home, missing out on really big life events. And not to say that other generations weren't stuck at home missing big life events either, but they were missing learning to drive. Maybe they learned to drive later, but they didn't get out there right away. 16th birthday, no sweet 16s, no graduations, no keg parties, no sleeping in class at university, all of that stuff they did from home. They also entered the workforce fully remote. And then, maybe you're experiencing the fear of what is it like to come into an office for the first time, having to interact. They're also the first generation where their entire lives may have been documented online from birth by their parents and then by themselves. Then we have our millennials, which is c'est moi, and we are middle-aged now. The youngest millennial is 28 and the oldest are actually 43. So again, when you're reading those clickbaits, this isn't a bunch of just kids. Millennials are wearing the boss pants, they're making the decisions, and this population is the fastest growing in the workforce with 8.6% growth numbers. This is largely due to immigration, and they do make up the largest share of the working age population. By 2029, they will become the largest generation in the country. So if millennials are the largest portion of the working age population, and then we also have Gen Zs who are growing, that means that by large, most people in the workforce are age 43 or younger. Then we have Gen X, won't slide over them, even though the internet likes to forget about them. They were born between 66 and 80, which means they're 43 to 57. They're the smallest working population. They're starting to think about, many of them, about retirement, sort of on the upper end, but otherwise are cruising through their 40s, also kind of in that stage of careers where they're advancing and maybe starting to hit your biggest earning years. Then last, we have the baby boomers who are aged 58 to 77. Most of them are transitioning into retirement. That's top of mind. And they're now less than a quarter of the population, total population. This was once the largest age group in Canada. And, obviously there's folks in the workforce older than 77, but the number is insignificant. There's around 1 million Canadians aged 77 to 84, so a very small portion of the workforce. And the data on the working population from Stats Canada only focuses on what they have defined as the working population. So there's not a lot of information around them. And for the most part, they're not eligible for many benefits anyway. So we're just going to kind of ignore them. And just so you know, for fun, the people who are aged 11 and younger are called Gen Alpha. We just had a little funny conversation about them in the office here about if the next generation will then be Gen Beta, and if we're going to create an inferiority complex for a whole generation, as we have an Alpha Beta war, perhaps. So we'll see what I don't know who names the generations, but we'll see what they get named. Some other generational considerations. Gen Z and millennials are the most educated and diverse generations. Gen X can never hold the position of a largest generation. There's just not enough of them. More than half of immigrants who settled in Canada from 2016 to about 2021 were millennials. But Gen Z is the second fastest growing population. As they get older, they may take over the fastest growing population as maybe immigrants start to become into that age range. We also noted that millennials make up the largest portion of the working population. Gen X is next with 29.5% of the population, and boomers with 19%, and Gen Z at 17. So again, here we see about half of the population is age 43 and under. Gen Z has dubbed the older millennials as geriatric, so that's fun. I guess I'll just leave here later with my walker. And they have declared that gifts and memes are dead. And if you hadn't already heard, your ankle socks are too. So time to go to the Walmart maybe and get some taller socks for everyone. All right, let's get into these folks a little bit. So benefit plans, when we're thinking about who's in them, typically benefit plans with a younger demographic used to be a guaranteed low claiming group, but that's really not the case anymore. Historically, young people, let's call young people under 40, had low overall claim volume. There were maybe some regular visits to the dentist, glasses, contacts. For the most part, light drug use, light paramed practitioner use. It's really not the case today. If you think about yourself, who here uses at least one practitioner more than once a year? Me. Who's seeing two or more? Me. We all have that ski knee going on. You gotta get the physio and massage. But increasing parameds is one of the most asked plan design changes for amendments. The $300 and $500 thresholds that are very common are now getting bumped up to $750 or maybe $1,000. So let's take a minute, let's travel back in time to understand how this claim shift has actually occurred. So let's imagine it's 1996, you're 30. What's the culture of the world like today? Well, we aren't openly talking about our mental health. Only crazy people see a psychologist. A disability claim for mental health is literally unheard of. I believe it was around this time that there was a court case that allowed mental health claims to become eligible in disability. There are virtually no drugs that cost more than $1,000 a year, and even $1,000 is completely outrageous. And paramedical practitioners are literally just being introduced into benefit plans. In order to do a claim for physiotherapy, let's say our bad ski knee, first you need to physically go to your doctor's office because you actually have a family physician. Exciting. So you go to your doctor, you get your referral. Then you go to your physiotherapist, you have the claim, and you pay them in cash. You get your change, you get your pennies, go back to your car, you got your receipt, you go home, and then you're like, oh, I don't have a claim form. So you go to the office, you get your claim form, you bring it back home, you fill it out, find an envelope, you put it in there, you get a stamp, or maybe you wait for 6 months until you get a bunch of claims. But anyway, let's pretend you have a lot of claims. You're ready to open up the shoebox and submit them. So you get your stamp, go to the mailbox, mail your claim. And you patiently wait for weeks for a person to manually pay your claim. And then, so it'll be a couple of weeks to get into the office. Person's going to physically open the mail in the mailroom, and then it's going to arrive on someone's desk. They're going to open it up. They're going to look at it. They're going to determine to pay it. They're going to cut a check, and then that's going to get mailed back to you. Then you're going to take your check and physically deposit with a teller at the local bank, which is only open from 8 till 5. That's the claim experience back in 1996. So we fast forward a decade. Okay, so 2006 now. You're 40, so you're still with the same employer. You've worked your way up the corporate ladder. You're in middle management now. Millennials are graduating from high school. Gen X is turning 30. Your benefit plan has online claim submission now and direct deposit. That's nice, but you don't quite trust it yet. You still like to receive your check and physically put it into your bank account. So your busted skiing knee still hurts. You're thankful that you can get some physiotherapy still, and your family physician was happy to keep writing you that referral. that you need refreshed every year. You recently heard from a younger worker, there's something new on the internet. It's like face something.
Yeah.
No idea what that's about. And you also have no idea that the market crash is just 2 years away. So now fast forward, it's 2016, happy 50th. It's Bell Let's Talk Day. Everyone is going on and on about their mental health. Guess you should post something on Facebook or Twitter. Same employer you've always been at has just added something new to the plan called an EAP. Seems like something the millennials you're hiring who are just entering the workplace would want to use. They talk a lot about being stressed, but it's nice, it's really easy now to submit your benefit claims. You've got an app on your iPhone and you don't need that note anymore for your doctor. So you don't go that often, which is good. Your knee's feeling pretty great. Maybe you're skiing a little less. You just started taking a couple medications for high cholesterol, but your doctor's starting to get after you from this lack of activity and says, if you don't start eating better and sleeping better, you might develop type 2 diabetes. So a new generation, welcome to the office. It's 2024. You're 30. You're on your third employer since getting serious about a real job after school. You work from home. You're all about being proactive with your health. Practice self-care. And today you're off for a massage. Thank goodness you don't have to pay for it. You just bill direct. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to afford to go at all. It's super easy to book whenever you want to go because they have an online calendar. Plus, if you forget, they're obviously going to reach out to you and make sure that you don't lose out on a single dollar of your benefits. Plus, there's other services in the office. So when you go over a limit, they just put in one of those. Like, how helpful. That's fraud, by the way. Don't do that. And tomorrow you have an appointment with your therapist again. They're the best in the city. You found them on TikTok and you don't even have to leave the house because you're just going to do a video chat with them. It's so ideal. So we can see here with our story time, just how the accessibility and the promotion of benefits has enabled higher usage. There's no more referrals. You can go to appointments easily in the Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. There's direct billing. If there's not direct billing for a practitioner, carriers have 24-hour turnaround time and claims via the app or online claim submission because everything's auto adjudicated. You've got online bookings. So appointments are easy. Claiming is easy. Plus, practitioners are quite savvy. They're heavily marketing their services. They're reminding members not to lose their benefits. In some case, they're optimizing benefits when there's multiple practitioners in the office as well. But ultimately, there's also a shift here in what we value. There's no stigma or very little, perhaps, around mental health. And, many people are sharing their journeys publicly. We really don't have to look very far for that. For the Love is Blind season 6 fans, in their reunion show, it was filled with therapy talk. We had several cast members reference the therapy work they did do or were doing or wanted to do. It's just a regular part of our self-care and our day-to-day lives. Plus today, folks really value proactive and preventative physical and mental health. It's about the total overall well-being. People are really trying to take care of their minds and their bodies. So let's take a look at some data to see how that backs up. I see there's a question in the chat. Oh, there's a female voice that needs to mute her mic. I think that's actually on my end. Someone in the office is on a phone call. Apologies, everyone. This is how we work now. Wide open spaces. I think she should be off for call shortly, though.
I don't know. Maybe she's in this time.
So let's look at the data. So we have claim volume submission data here. This chart shows 2 different year periods. So we have the dark blue is 2022 and the light blue is 2023. So what's going on with claims today is we have a claim increase triangle. We're seeing more claimants outside of the natural growth that Equitable, is experiencing. So we're seeing more claimants, more claims per claimant, and a higher claim cost. So we've got inflation coming from all 3 places. So from a claim volume perspective, This chart shows claim submissions during our peak season, which is kind of late fall into the end of the year, and kind of settles down halfway through January. So again, the dark blue was peak 2022. The light blue is 2023. So we see here in the early fall, we already have a higher claim submission volume than the previous year. And then we see, the flow continue. We see a huge claim volume in peak, and it drops down, but it never goes below the volume from the previous year or even from the start. So we're sustaining at just a higher general claim volume. So if we dig into the numbers a bit more, our total health non-drug claims grew by 30% in 2023 versus 2022. This was driven by 15% increase in utilization and a 5% increase in inflation, so a higher cost per claim. So our top pyramids, we kind of think about chiro, massage, and physio.
Yeah.
So the utilization for those three increased 17% respectively. But acupuncture had a moment, and the utilization of that benefit increased 21%. So we're seeing here all around really large increases in utilization. So more claims per person, more people claiming. So what else is going, well, actually, before I get into what else is going on culturally at work, when we have these increased claim volumes, we obviously have more claim dollars coming in. More people are hitting their pyramid maximums. Maybe there's pressure on HR to increase those. So then it comes down to, can the employer afford to? What can the employee afford to pay out of pocket? What do you need to trade off, in order to increase pyramids? What's happening in the drug plan? What's happening in other spaces? If there's more, if even just 15 years ago, we had a plan where there was virtually no claim volume coming through. And then now we have a plan where there's a lot of claim volume coming through. Can the employer sustain those costs, and what do they have to trade off? Typically, we see the 80-20 rule in a plan where 80% of claims are coming from drugs and 20%, come from healthcare. That's not the case anymore. We're seeing 50-50 splits, or in, groups with an average age under 40, we might see it the other way around, 80-20, drugs 20 instead. Okay, so what else is going on culture at work? There's definitely culture shifts happening. When we dive into work talk for a couple of minutes, it's very revealing. Of course, you find tons of funny memes around Zoom meetings, and this meeting could have been an email, and I'll give you 2 minutes of your time back. If you dig deeper, you start to find folks talking about total compensation, encouraging people to use their benefits, encouraging people to negotiate their salary, use their paid time off. You see lots about not doing any more than what is required. Going above and beyond is passé. You'll see info about how your employer isn't your family. You don't owe them their soul. And the general theme here is knowing and using your total comp, pay transparency, and a revolt against hustle culture. It's not work-life balance. It's really life and then work sort of in the balance, and a theme of separation. You also see, a lot about not wanting to go into the office, which I can understand. I like working from home too. But I also like coming into the office. It's great having, colleagues around. And if we keep in mind, again, Gen Z currently entering the workforce, they originally started work 100% remote, and their school was 100% remote. So, they might find that sort of unknown and that uncertainty a little bit scary. But something of concern that's developing with our young people is around trust. So TELUS Health recently hosted their annual Employers Connect seminar, during which they shared the info you see here on trust. But even scarier is that you have younger people less likely to say they trust their friends. They don't trust people at work, and they're missing something really key, which is a work bestie. And this is highly concerning because trust is linked to more satisfaction in your life and at work. It's also linked to less burnout, less stress, and more energy at work. So I'm not here to make a full case for, a full return to the office or anything. I would revolt against that. But when you're disconnected from people physically all day, every day, it's difficult to build rapport. It's difficult to make meaningful connections. And it's difficult to build trust. So in our virtual environment as well, employers have contributed to this lack of trust with spy software, micromanagement, mass layoffs in a cruel manner over Zoom. So in this, lack of trust space, I think the benefit plan can really help, in part by walking the talk, what an employer is saying to employees. When an employer says XYZ is important to us, when the benefit plan is there, backing it up and the things that are accessible to employees, it can really help support that message. I mean, there's only so much the benefit plan can do to fix trust, but I think there are ways to do that. And when you have great conversations with employers about what is your culture, how do you support it, how do you want the plan to support it, I think these things tie it together really nice. So do these posts and memes hint at other possible work trends? I think they do. So let's look at another one. What about job tenure? So in group benefits, we use the past to predict the cost for the future. So I posed the question, are claims from 3 years ago relevant in predicting the claims of tomorrow? Okay. So right now, the average tenure in Canada, according to Stats Canada, is 100.6 months. This number has been between 101 and 103 months since 2010. But we're thinking about the memes and we look at the tenure on the chart by age group, will this trend continue? So I'm getting out my crystal ball and I'm asking it, will tenure drop? All signs point to yes. As you get older, it's more likely that you might stay at an employer for a little bit longer. You're a bit more sure about your career path, maybe what type of work you want to do. But I think that the comfortableness of moving employers fairly regularly is going to stay with, the Gen Zs and the millennials. So these historical trends of, people in the 55 plus category staying at their employer for 10 or more years, I think we're going to see that reduce, and we're going to see these more level charts like we do in the cohorts that we see here that are 35 to 44. I think it's pretty typical for, the under 30s to be changing jobs more often, your career laddering. But there's also shifts here. There's a move away from staying with one employer for an entire career and working through the corporate ladder. The shifting in loyalty has changed. So I think that we are going to see quite a drastic drop here over time. And carriers will need to start rethinking, the strategy on just how many, years of experience are actually relevant to that group. And there's more evidence to indicate that employee tenure will drop. Surveys consistently find that employees are on the hunt for a job. Recent Benefits Canada article shared that half of Canadian employees say they're looking for a new job or plan to begin their search. A survey that polled more than 1,100 employees found that employees who have been with their current employer for 2 to 4 years were most likely to be making a career move. This is followed by Gen Z and millennials, and then working parents. So according to respondents, the number one reason for seeking a new job was higher salary. So, not a lot of surprise there. But 39% said that one of the reasons for seeking a new job was better benefits and perks. So this is a space where, we can really leverage the benefit plan for tenure, but also to attract new employees. And if you do want to use the benefit plan as a retention tool, so here we are in the braggable benefits, you need to share what's in the plan with your current employees, because employees can't use the plan if they don't know what's there, but they aren't looking for it until they need it. So we need to be consistently, delivering messaging to plan members about what's in their plan. And we need to meet them where they are when they need it. Here's a great example. TELUS Health found that 40% of employees don't know what an employee and family assistance program is. 40%. And, this is a product that I think we all talk about a lot and maybe take for granted that people just know what it is. Almost half of people don't know, in a benefit plan. And of those people, that have heard of an EAP, they don't know what it does. And some of them said that the barrier to using it was cost. but the program is free to use. Another similar survey found numbers citing that 23% of people were concerned about confidentiality. So there's still a lot of learning here to do, around a product that we probably take for granted. People know how to use, but they don't. The future, I think, of braggable benefits isn't just having relevant benefits like virtual care and mental health support. It's also about sharing that you have them. Braggable benefits doesn't need to be employees bragging to each other about their benefits, like this real world example that I have here of someone sharing on Twitter a nice increase that they had to their plan. It's also about employers bragging to their employees about the benefits. I had an airplane, I met a new airplane friend. He ran a 12 person business, and he couldn't wait to tell me about the benefits that they put in place for them. He opened his app to show me what they had so I could validate how good the plan was. He was a small fish in a big competitive industry, and they had virtually no turnover because their benefit plan was so strong. And it was something that they were using to recruit. On their website, they had more than just competitive benefits. They really spelled it out. They talked about it in the recruitment process. And with the help of their advisor, they're consistently reminding people what's in their plan and how to access the benefits. One space that I think is a very braggable benefit that will continue to evolve is personalized medicine. People in today's workforce like things to be personalized to them. Science is evolving in this space, and we're really just at the tip of the iceberg. For a time, we'll need to be very critical and deploy critical thinking when we're looking at this personalized medicine space. We'll need to be looking for misinformation and try to understand, how valid is what we're reading. Who's put out the information? What could their underlying objective be? Especially as we learn more about gut health, which seems to be a space that is going to evolve. And we're learning a lot about how gut health is so personal and can impact total health. For now, the easiest way to support personalized medicine is with pharmacogenomic testing. So for pharmacogenomics is the study of an individual's gene influence, how an individual genes influence their response to medication. So this testing can help determine how compatible a person's body may be to a particular drug. And it helps their physician prescribe the most appropriate medication and dosage. So the goal here is to ensure the right drug is prescribed to deliver the most positive outcome with the fewest side effects. So data from, again, TELUS Health finds that 1 in 4 workers reported taking medication for a mental health issue. And so pharmacogenomic testing is great for the mental health space. And 58% of people's first prescription was not effective. It took more than a year for 32% of people to find the right medication. So just imagine how meaningful a pharmacogenomic test would have been for those people, getting on the right drug immediately out of the gate. You could maybe even prevent a long-term disability claim. You can see here from the 2023 Benefits Canada Healthcare Survey that plan sponsors are very interested in offering genetic testing, and plan members are very interested in using it. Also very aligned is mindfulness. I'll just sort of point that out. It's often rare that these are aligned. Plan sponsors want to offer, plan members would use. So good to point that out. Another thing to point out here, because we will kind of chat about women's health and fertility in a second. The reason that would use for fertility is so small is because the portion of the population who are impacted, by fertility issues is small. It's around 6% of the population. So this number actually lines up perfectly with the population size that would be interested in these benefits. So when we're thinking about, again, our half of the generation that's under 43 in the workplace, they are influencing what we're valuing. And the values of the majority of the workforce are influencing carrier product builds. We've seen a positive societal shift where social impact matters and inclusivity matters. And inclusion, in this case, meaning covering or intended to cover all items, costs, or services, all people. And for employers, this really means, for their people and for their benefits, that they have things that are relevant to everyone. And, I'm focusing on maybe a younger population here, but this includes everyone, regardless of age in the workplace. And we've seen insurers respond to this, ask for inclusivity by repackaging already available benefits into named bundles, such as family building benefits. We've seen insurance carriers create new products, such as gender affirmation coverage. And another inclusive item that technology has facilitated is translating, which is especially beneficial to those where English is not their first language. And, I shared earlier that immigration is really driving our population growth. So this is a really important part of inclusion. And these products bring us back to that affordability piece. Generally, the maximums of these products are generous, which means that not all employers can afford to offer them, whether it's due to the increase in the rates or the increased claims that would end up flowing through the plan for those benefits. Family building benefits can have $25,000, $50,000 maximums. Gender affirmation benefits, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. These are significant costs, and it is a barrier to entry. So we're seeing these things being added generally to larger groups. But keep in mind that there are options here. If an employer can't afford these generous maximums in the bundles, or your insurer hasn't created the bundles yet, you may be able to piece something together that's more affordable. You can either break apart the pieces in the bundle, perhaps you can use some lower maximums. Also keep in mind that in some of the cases, some of these benefits are actually taxable, which brings us to the ultimate in flexibility spending accounts, the healthcare spending account and the taxable spending account. You can offer these to provide the ultimate inclusive coverage. And this is sort of like the low-hanging fruit of, bringing benefits together that meet everyone's needs, regardless of where they're at in life. Again, Benefits Canada Healthcare Survey, they found that 68% of plan members with a healthcare spending account say their benefit plan meets their needs, compared to only 49% if you don't have one. That's a really big jump in a plan meeting their needs just from a small tool like a healthcare spending account. And it doesn't have to be overly expensive. Even just $500 a person can make quite a meaningful impact. And then if we're getting back to maybe some of these bigger benefits like fertility, you don't have to offer $15,000 of fertility drug coverage. If you can only afford $1,000, you can offer $1,000 or $4,000 perhaps. You can also look to the healthcare plan instead of the drug plan to offer support. You can offer coverage for facility procedures, including lab tests, imaging, insemination. Don't overlook mental health, because in a lot of these pieces, mental health is being impacted by what's going on in your life, and offering stronger mental health supports for employees will support employees in all phases of their life as well. And then with this inclusion, we're seeing a lot of discussion around women's health, and there's a lot to unpack here. I want to, of course, mention that not only are women 50% of the working population, but they're also dependents on the benefit plan. And 84% of folks in HR are women. Women are often the person in charge of the benefit program. So it's important to be, whether you're a man or a woman, it's important to understand what's going on in the women's health space, so that you can have these conversations and be knowledgeable about it. Because if you're a man, your clients may be women, and they're going to ask you about these things. So it's important for everyone to have a good understanding here, whether or not what's here has a direct impact on you or not. So what is impacting women's health? Well, historically, women have been excluded from clinical trials, which is a massive negative. And we're starting to see progress here, but it will be years before the damage is undone. Researchers at the Bingham Women's Hospital in Boston actually chronicled the exclusion of women from health research and its impact on women's health. The 3 M's here, the menstruation, maternity, and menopause, their impact has been totally ignored. And honestly, the findings are infuriating. For example, the #1 killer of women, cardiovascular disease, affects men and women completely differently, including symptoms, risk factors, and outcomes. But only 1/3 of cardiovascular trials include women. And of those, only 3% actually reported the results by sex. Major endocrine changes throughout a woman's life, including puberty, pregnancy, menopause, they have been directly linked to an increased risk for depression. Women also metabolize drugs differently than men, yet fewer than 45% of animal studies on anxiety and depression use female lab animals, which is wild. It's wild. And then if we look to Alzheimer's, women are almost twice as likely to develop it. And the impact of hormonal prevailing thinking was that, hear me? It says my default microphone has changed. I'm going to assume I'm not seeing any messages, that I'm good. That was weird. Anyway, the prevailing thinking was that it was simply because women live much longer, which we now know, while is the case, there's so much more to why women are more likely to develop Alzheimer's. The list goes on. In that, I'll also say that, women make up 75% of reported adverse side effects as well. So thinking back to the pharmacogenomics, you can imagine, again, just how impactful having that is on your plan for women. So the 3 M's have a massive influence on women through their lives. Long overdue, we're talking about better supporting women's health and understanding women's health. It's long overdue that we're removing the stigma around speaking about menstruation, maternity, and menopause. This topic isn't going away. It's not a fad. It's really basic support for a huge portion of the population. So some low-hanging fruit here for everyone to get going. Just be curious. Google is your friend. Whether you experience these things personally or not, it's worth understanding what half of the population could be experiencing. A couple of great menopause, resources in Canada are the Menopause Foundation of Canada and the Menopause Chick. You can also support women in the plan with drugs. So here's a nice little list here. So you can support women by making sure that these things are covered. So hormone therapy, HRT, this is especially relevant for women in their menopause years. But it's not just about menopause. HRT can also support women with endometriosis, thyroid issues, just to name a few. I'll also add that the FDA greenlit a drug that helps reduce night sweats and hot flashes. This drug costs about $600 a month. So there's a lot of development, happening in the drug space. Birth control and oral contraceptives, this is kind of an obvious one, but it's worth mentioning because when you remove the cost barrier for products like this, you give women body autonomy. Plus, over the course of 20 years, a woman can pay $6,000 or more for these products. So just imagine if she could have invested that into her retirement instead. Weight loss drugs are on the list because even though more men are obese than women, historically, women account for 81% of weight loss drug users. That has a lot to say about our society, I think, and societal pressures, but that's probably a conversation for another day. We already touched on pharmacogenomics, so we'll skip over that one. Migraine, women are the largest user group of migraine drugs. You could insert a funny gender joke about why, or maybe not. But people with chronic migraines literally get their lives back with these drugs, and employers regain a productive and present employee. So it's a win-win. And then I have vaccines on the list. The HPV vaccine, which protects against cervical cancer, is available for women and men of most ages now. For some reason, more women are more likely to develop shingles than men. But in general, vaccines are an inclusive benefit. Men are more likely to contract, I think, pneumonia than women, and there's a pneumonia vaccine. So, these also support your folks who want to travel. The list goes on. So that's just a good one in general. So if we're thinking about where benefits are going, technology advancements are, top on the list with that. But technology advancements, aren't to be feared. There's a lot of really good things going on here. And our users today really want to have a personalized technological experience. They want to log in and see things that are related to them. And, the insurance carriers are doing a lot in to upgrade their technology. Carriers are updating their back-end systems, which means you can expect in the next 2 to 5 years pretty rapid improvements in system capabilities and abilities to accommodate unique plan requests. We'll see the plan member experience become more personalized and easier to navigate, which is important. I think that I see Marnie on.
Yeah,
I think I'm getting the curtain pull here. So I'll finish off by saying that 40% of consumers are Gen Zers, and they're the future of our work. And they won't download an app without trusting the brand first. They want to do things mobile from start to finish. So we're all thinking about them specifically, as we're doing our builds. So I think that, the generation in the workforce today is going to be driving a really great technology experience.
Thanks, Megan.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. First, outstanding presentation. And I know just for the essence of time, I know that there weren't a lot of questions on this, but I do want to say that for our advisors that are on this call, the stats on just on the whole demographic change and who the workforce is and where things are going and the mindset between everybody. This is an opportunity for advisors really to think about the products, the concepts, the ideas that are out there. Megan knows that I have a saying, and people on this line, it's one thing to put in a benefit program, it's another to put in the right benefit program. And really, this is the opportunity where you need, as advisors, to do discoveries. You might know them as KYCs. Here at IDC Win Workplace Solutions, we call them a discovery. Understanding the needs of the employees, putting in the right benefit program and partnering, or unplugging us, but partnering with us in order to get the tools and the resources that you need, because the demographic of the workforce is changing. We also have something here that we say, there's a difference between an equal access plan versus an equal utility plan, and getting your mind around that and putting in that right benefit program is going to be key.